So we are going to go ahead and launch Excel. If you have a desktop shortcut or the app pinned to your taskbar, you can use that. Or you can basically just click on search, key in Excel 2016, and then you should see your desktop app and you can just click on that to launch it. And when it first opens, you are in Backstage View, and you're going to be creating a blank workbook. So we're going to go ahead and click on Blank Workbook. And we're just going to briefly talk about what you're seeing on your screen, and then we'll go ahead and get started entering data into a worksheet. Across the top on the left, upper left side, you have a quick access toolbar just like you had in Word. In the middle is the name of the application, Excel, and the default name of this workbook, which is Book 1. When we save the workbook under a different name, you'll see the actual file name displayed there. Over on the right, that would be my username. And then we've got the different window manipulation buttons. This same little button here is in Word. And if you accidentally click it, you can actually hide the ribbon. Now, I personally don't like it when the ribbon is hidden. I like to see the ribbon. So I'm going to click on that button, and I'm going to say, show the tabs in command. You'll notice that you can show the tabs only. Let me show you what that looks like. And then you just have to click them for the commands. Okay? Or if you have a fairly large monitor, you probably want to see the tabs and the commands, because that is actually the most useful way to display this. Below your application title bar are the top level tabs that always display. When you are working on different things, or maybe you insert a graphic or something like that, you will see some additional tabs displayed. They are called contextual tabs, and they only display when you're working on very specific things. The top level tabs that you see now always display. I do have a couple extra ones that I have added that you may not have, and they're for more advanced Excel commands. So if you see a couple extra like developer on mine that you do not have, also Power Pivot is probably extra. Do not worry about that. Those are more advanced features that we are not going to be using. Over to the right of your tabs is the Tell Me box. We used that back in Word, and we will be using it today as well. Below your ribbons, you have on the left a name box. And if you look in the grid area, you will see that there is one cell that has a heavy border. And the name box is showing you where that cell is located. Next to the name box, we have a formula bar. When you key in calculations in Excel, the calculation itself shows up in the formula bar. What you see in the actual cell itself is the result of the formula. Okay, so if you want to look at the formula itself, you have to look up on the formula bar. Below the formula bar, we have letters, and these identify columns. And the columns are lettered A through Z, and then they start with AA, AB, AC, all the way to AZ. And then you'll see BA, BB, BC, all the way to BZ, and so on. The good news is that we pretty much deal with what you can see on your screen. So we don't really get into these monster spreadsheets. Along the left, we have row numbers. And again, these row numbers go on and on and on. We pretty much deal with what you see on your screen. At the intersection of a column and a row, you have a cell. And to help you find the cells, there are grid lines displayed. And by default, these grid lines do not print. They're just for you to help you locate the various cells. And we already talked a little bit about this active cell, the one with the dark border. To move this cell around, you can click your mouse, and you'll notice as I move it around, the name box changes. You can press the Enter key. You can use your arrow keys, and it'll just go in the direction of the arrow. You can use your Tab key, Shift and Tab. So all sorts of ways to move this around. Moving that active cell is pretty critical to creating a spreadsheet, because when you enter data, the data goes into the active cell. So in order to create a spreadsheet, we have to move that cell around. Now, below all of the grid area, we have a Sheet tab, and you can have as many sheet tabs as memory will hold. Clicking the plus sign creates a new one. And we will be working with multiple sheets eventually, not today. And I will be showing you how to rename the sheets, because sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3 are not particularly user-friendly names. They don't really tell you what's on the sheet. Over towards the right, we do have a scroll bar, because as I mentioned, spreadsheets can get quite large, and it's quite conceivable that a spreadsheet would be more than your screen, in which case you're going to have to scroll to see everything. Now at the very, very bottom, where it says Ready, that is the status bar. And over on the left is our messages from Excel to you, basically indicating what you're doing, or if it's ready for you to execute a command. And then over towards the right, we have different views. Just like we had different views in Word, we have different views here. The view that we are in is pretty much the view that we do most of the work in. It's called Normal View. Page layout view we will be using a little bit later on in subsequent chapters. Basically, you go in that view because it shows you page breaks a little better, and you can add headers and footers. And page break preview also is quite useful for seeing page breaks. Okay, so both those two views will show you the page breaks. Next to that, you have a zoom. And this is just like the zoom in Word. It's kind of a personal preference thing. It'll make things bigger on your screen so they're easier to see. What goes to the printer is always 100%. So however it looks at 100% is how it will print. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and we're going to start creating this spreadsheet. And typically you enter the text first, because the text is used for titles, row headings, and column headings. And you pretty much need to have the row headings and the column headings in there before you start typing in the numbers, because they help you identify where the numbers should go. So we do the text first, followed by plain numbers. And the last thing that we enter are the calculations, because calculations are based on numbers. So we're going to go up to cell A1. So I'm just going to click right on that cell, and I'm going to key in payroll. And if I make a mistake, I can use the backspace and delete and correct it. But if it looks good, I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Pressing enter will enter the contents into the cell, and that also repositions the active cell, so I can enter a subtitle. And my subtitle is week ended September 29th, 2018. And you'll notice that the subtitle kind of spills over into adjacent cells. And this is very normal for titles. Typically, a title is going to be wider than the cell, and that is absolutely not a problem unless you plan on putting something in the cell next to the title. So I'm in cell A2. If I was going to put something in cell B2, then having A2 spill over is more of a problem. Okay, but I'm not planning on putting anything in B2, so having it spill over is fine. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And at this point, they would like us to save. We are not going to print. We are going to save. So you can skip the printing instruction. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the Save button. And because this has not been saved, I will see the Save As dialog box. So because we haven't saved this yet, clicking on Save is the exact same thing as going to File and Save As. Okay, we are going to have to give this thing a name. And they would like us to call it 1-payroll. And where we are going to be saving this to is the Excel S1 folder. Now this is the folder structure that we used for Microsoft Word. We're going to use it for Excel, and it did come with the book. You should have it downloaded. So I'm going to browse to find that correct folder, because putting things in the correct folder definitely will help us find it when you want to turn it in. So we're going to put it right in Excel S1, and there's some other files in there. So I'm going to go ahead and key in the name again, 1-payroll, and then I'm going to click on Save. And you'll notice that at the top, Book 1 now changed to 1-payroll. So in our next video, we are actually going to be adding our column headings and our row headings.